Well, hello and welcome to the inaugural and possibly last ever TMHistoryIcons remote pub quiz. Thank you for joining me here in my deserted virtual pub, the Empty Arms, where we've got three types of cask ale, a variety of gins and mixers, and there's a couple of bottles of Prosecco in the fridge for later. Now, if you've just joined us, having played Miss D. Cox's regular Friday evening teacher quiz on Twitter, then you are very, very welcome indeed. So please find a table, there's plenty here, and make yourself at home. I'm Scott Alsop, I'm wearing a terribly shiny silver jacket, and I desperately hope that this doesn't all go catastrophically wrong. Now, let's face it, the history teacher community is a very friendly and supportive bunch, and I think we can all agree that we've each been an important source of support during the uncertain times that we're living in. With the growth of popularity of quizzing at home and the sad postponement of some of the other major events in the annual history calendar, such as the SHP and the Historical Association conferences, I thought it would be nice for us to set up a quiz as a chance for history fans to get together and take part in a bit of friendly competition. Now, if you do enjoy history quizzing, there's even an official HASHP Euroclio quiz next week on Sunday the 26th of April, hosted by the fabulous Rich Kennett and Sally Thorne. I'll give you a few more details about how you can join in with them a little bit later. Now, for tonight's quiz, there are going to be 6 rounds. And all your answers are going to need to be submitted on a form, on a Google form, and you can find the details. If I just click the thing just round here, then you should be able to find that there it now is the link. Okay, so that is where you can go to access the Google form to submit all your answers. It's bit.ly/TMHI quiz. Just a warning though, one submission per team, and you will submit all the rounds together at the end of the quiz. It's just a single Google form. So please be very, very careful that you don't accidentally close that form window during the quiz, or you risk losing all of your responses before you submit it. So just to be on the safe side, therefore, I'd suggest that someone else in the team might want to keep a paper record of your team's answers. Now, because we haven't done any kind of pre-registration for this quiz, I have absolutely no idea how many people and also how many non-history teachers might be joining in tonight. So we're going to go quite softly on this quiz. But nevertheless, to say I'm nervous about making a foray into it is, quite an understatement. So please, please, please be forgiving, both in terms of the technology and the questions, which have been designed to be able to be auto-marked. Now, most will just need you to click, but on the excellent advice of quiz mistress Sally Thorne, I'd request that if you do come to a question where you need to type an answer, then please do it in all caps. I'm placing a lot of trust in the reliability of Google auto marking here, and just like remote learning, we're all on a very steep learning curve. And so that's another reason for you to keep a separate record of your answers. It hopefully goes without saying that you really should avoid looking up any of the questions, but I should mention that there are absolutely no prizes for taking part anyway. Nevertheless, I hope that over the course of the next hour and a half or slightly less, you'll have a good time and hopefully a bit of a catch up with some friends and colleagues and relations. You can, of course, use the hashtag. It's just down there. It's TMHI quiz is the hashtag if you're on Twitter. Maybe even share a few photos of yourself playing along. Now, I've waffled on for quite enough, I think, so let us get started. The first round is called Earlier or Later. And I'm going to give you 10 events that happened throughout history, and you simply need to say whether they happened earlier or later than the previous one in the list. It's kind of like a version of Play Your Cards Right, all except you don't know what the numbers are. So, for example, if I was to say the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, which you should hopefully know occurred in 1914, and the next event was the foundation of the NHS, then the answer would be later, since the NHS was founded in 1948, which of course was later than the assassination of the Archduke. Now, the likelihood is that you're not going to know some of the events that I'm going to give you. I've tried to be purposefully obscure because the idea of the round is to pool your team's general contextual knowledge about things and people and stuff to try to work out relative timeframes of what seems feasible or not. Now, for the quiz, we're going to start with an event from this day in history. It's the 17th of April, 1492. And on the 17th of April, 1492, the Catholic monarchs of Spain, that's Ferdinand and Isabella, Henry VIII's father and mother-in-law, of course, they agreed to finance Christopher Columbus's first exploratory voyage across the Atlantic. So that is the starting date. It's the 17th of April, 1492. And so, here we go. Let's get this quiz up and running for question 1. Here we go. Arthur Guinness signed a 9,000-year lease for the derelict St James's Gate Brewery in Dublin. Did that happen earlier or later than Ferdinand and Isabella financed Columbus's voyage across the Atlantic? So for question 1, is it earlier or later that Arthur Guinness signed a 9,000-year lease for the derelict St James's Gate Brewery in Dublin? Of course, if you've got a can of Guinness in front of you now, would definitely be the time to properly read the label. Moving on to question 2. So this is a chain of events. Thomas Stevens was the first person to cycle around the world. Did he do this earlier or later than Arthur Guinness signed his 9,000-year lease? Thomas Stevens became the first person to cycle around the world, but was it earlier or later than the previous event? Moving on to question number 3. An enemy ship was sunk by a submarine for the first time. So the very first sinking of an enemy ship by a submarine, do you think that happened earlier or later than the first person to cycle around the world? Ready for question number 4. The first Pony Express delivery was sent. I imagine some of you know the exact date for that, in which case, well done. But was it earlier or later than the first sinking of an enemy ship by a submarine? So the first Pony Express delivery was sent. That's number 4. Was it earlier or later than that submarine attack? Question number 5. Richard Wagner's Ring Cycle was performed in its entirety for the first time. I'll give you a bit of a clue on this, that parts of the Ring Cycle had been performed earlier. So this is Richard Wagner's Ring Cycle was performed in its entirety over a 3-night run for the very first time. That's question number 5. I've just seen a request to go a little bit slower. I'll leave this one on the screen for you for a moment. Obviously, it's the first time for us doing this. We've got this live YouTube stream going out, and then there's lots of you doing your remote teams as well. So I realise that there's likely to be a fair bit of lag between everyone. So I promise I'll slow down. Just to give you the heads up, though, that at the end of each round, I will give you a recap on the screen of the 10 questions from that round so that you can go back through them again at your own pace. Moving on to number 6 then. Event number 6, the first execution using an electric chair. Did that happen earlier or later than the first performance of the entire Ring Cycle? The first execution using an electric chair. So number 7 in round 1, the world's first human-to-human heart transplant was carried out. So the world's first human-to-human heart transplant, Do you think that happened earlier or later than the first execution using an electric chair? So question 7 was the world's first human-to-human heart transplant being carried out. And question number 8 is about the first woman to be awarded a pilot's license. Do you think that she was awarded a pilot's license earlier or later than the world's first human-to-human heart transplant? So question number 8, the first woman to be awarded a pilot's license. I see that Mr. Andrew Sweet from the TMHistoryIcons gang is saying that this is tough. I was in two minds as to whether to open with this or not. Don't worry, there's some arguably easier rounds coming up in a little bit, I promise. Question number 8 was the first woman to be awarded a pilot's license. Remember, though, that the questions are only easy if you know them, and they're only hard if you don't. Question number 9. So the previous one was the first woman to be awarded a pilot's license. Question number 9 is about the first woman to receive a Ph.D. Do you think that the first woman to receive a Ph.D. was earlier or later than the first woman to be awarded a pilot's license? Question number 9, the first woman to receive a Ph.D. Incidentally, I hope that you are enjoying the attention to detail, that there's a little bit of pub ambient sound in the background there. That was question number 9, the first woman to receive a PhD. And question 10 on this first round that my friends and colleagues are telling me is really hard. Sorry about that. Question number 10, the first black international football player. So the very first black international football player was a man. Do you think that he was earlier or later than the first woman to receive a PhD? Question number 10, the first black international football player. Okay, that is your 10th and final question in round 1. I'm going to put those are the 10 dates up there on the screen, so you can see the entire chain, starting all the way back with Ferdinand and Isabella, of course, on this day in 1492. Those are the 10. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to talk amongst yourselves on your team and answer any that you are still unsure of. Okay, everyone, that's the couple of minutes that I promised you to take a look through those 10 questions again, and hopefully confer on any that you are as of yet unsure about. Welcome to those of you who have just joined us. We're one round into the quiz already, but if you wish to join nevertheless, then you can find the online answer sheet at bit.ly/TMHI quiz. If you're on Twitter, then that's the hashtag as well, but I've been reliably informed by the powerhouse behind the scenes that is my phenomenal wife that there's a fair bit of chat going on in YouTube. So I don't know what you're saying because I'm busy doing this, but hopefully everyone's okay and enjoying everything so far. Now, we're going to move on to the next round, which is historical-ish movie taglines. I promised you that after that slight baptism of fire, as it turns out to be from round one, that round two might be a little bit more straightforward. In this round, all you need to do is match the official promotional tagline to the movie that it came from. There are going to be 10 taglines, but there are 12 possible choices of film. So if you've got the Google form loaded, then you'll see that there are 12 possible films there, but 2 of them are red herrings. Okay, so you need to match the tagline. And down the left-hand side of those of the sheet, then there is a little hint as to which tagline it is that we're talking about, so that you can match it a little bit later. So let's get going. Number one. Oh yeah, these are the 12 possible choices of film, I should just say, for anyone that doesn't have the answer sheet. So if you've not got the answer sheet in front of you, then it could be in alphabetical order, starting with numbers, of course, because that's how you should categorize things if you used to work in a record shop like me. 1917, Apollo 13, Ben-Hur, the more recent version, incidentally, not the classic, Braveheart, Elizabeth, Gandhi, JFK, Milk, Suffragette, Saving Private Ryan, Selma, and Titanic. So you're going to get 10 taglines connected to those 12 films. Those 12 films. That's right. Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. What's in this bit? Seriously, found this in the shop. It seemed appropriate to pick that up, incidentally. Right. Okay, let's get on. Question number 1 of round 2, historical-ish movies. It's Houston. We have a problem. Question number 1, Houston, we have a problem. Just a heads up that depending on the resolution on your computer screen, for the answers to see all 12 possible films, you might need to scroll on the screen just in case you can't see all 12 possible options. So question 1 was Houston, we have a problem. I think that everyone knows what that was from. Question number 2 is one dream can change the world. Question 2, one dream can change the world. On to question 3 then. Nothing on earth could come between them. Question number 3 in historical-ish movie taglines. Nothing on earth could come between them. Question number 4. It's the story that won't go away. Question number 4. The story that won't go away. Question number 5 in the historical movie taglines is, the mission is a man. The mission is a man. So halfway through round 2, here is question number 6. The time is now. Which historical movie did that come from? The time is now. Question number 7. The story of a man with a free soul and with the courage to follow it. The story of a man with a free soul and with the courage to follow it. That's question number 7. Question number 8. Which historical movie is this from? Time is the enemy. Time is the enemy. That's number 8. For number 9, penultimate question on this round. First to finish, last to die. First to finish, last to die. Which historical-ish movie is that the promotional tagline for? And finally, on our historical-ish movie taglines, number 10, his triumph changed the world forever. His triumph changed the world forever. That is movie tagline number 10. It's round 2 of the TMHI quiz. It's good to see a few photos of people on there on Zoom and Google Meet and various things like that. Nice to see that you've managed to get your teams together. And lots of people playing in person as well. That's nice. Number 10 was his triumph changed the world forever. So those are your 10 historical movie taglines. As with round 1, I will leave those on the screen for a minute or two, just so that you can confer before we move on to round 3. A good point has been made about question number 6. Yeah, I did swap question number 6 out, actually. I decided that was too tough. Question number 6 is actually this. It's the time is now. It's not what it is on the big answer sheet. I'm really sorry. Okay, that's gone horribly wrong. So it's the time is now should be number 6. And that actually seems an appropriate time for us to move on to the next round. So number 6 was the time is now, not the one that is listed there on the big list. It takes leadership to confront a nation's fear. It takes friendship to conquer your own. That, incidentally, is the King's Speech. Took that one out and swapped it in for something else, and you might be able to work out why. Anyway, it is time to move on to round number 3, and round number 3 is called What Comes Next. Now, those of you who watch the brilliant Only Connect on BBC4 should have a good idea of how this round is going to work. I'm going to give you a list of 4 things in a sequence, and your job is to correctly identify what comes next. Those of you who were playing hashtag teacher quiz a few minutes earlier with Miss Cox will know how this works as well. So it's 4 things in sequence. You need to identify what comes next, and you need to type your answer on this. Now, following Sally Thorne's advice, I'd suggest that you type your answer in all caps, all capitals, just to reduce the chance that Google auto marking doesn't quite get it right. So type it in all caps. Spelling is going to matter. Although I've put some potential alternatives in there, and just stick with the standard alphabet. Don't worry about adding things like accents over the top of letters and things like that. I know that we've got at least one languages teacher playing at the moment, so don't worry about adding accents over the top. All right, so round number 3. Let's get going. Number 1: Versailles, Saint-Germain, Neuilly, and Trianon. What is the 5th thing that comes in that sequence? Versailles, Saint-Germain, Neuilly, and Trianon. On to number 2 in our What Comes Next round. Henry, Edward, Mary. That's number 2. Henry, Edward, Mary. What is the 5th in that sequence? So number 2 was Henry, Edward, Mary. Let's move on to number 3. So what comes next in this sequence? Omaha, gold, Juno, sword. Omaha, gold, Juno, sword. What is the 5th part of that sequence? So number 3 was Omaha, gold, Juno, sword. You needed to identify the 5th and type it in. Remember, stick to block capitals, as is the advice. Number 4, slightly trickier one this, I think. Medieval, Renaissance, or Renaissance for those of you who are across the pond, Baroque, and Classical. What is the fifth part of that sequence? Medieval, Renaissance, Baroque, and Classical. What comes next? For question number 5. Here's a sequence for you. I can tell you there definitely are 5. John Hampden, Arthur Hazelrig, Denzil Hollis, and William Strode. Who comes next in that sequence? John Hampden, Arthur Hazelrig, Denzil Hollis, and William Strode. Sorry, my pronunciation's falling apart at the moment. Thought it made sense to give you an extra few seconds on that one, because that's a proper history teacher question. That what comes next in that sequence of 5? This one here looks pretty straightforward, and if you know what it is, then it really is straightforward. USA, USSR, Britain, France. What comes next in that sequence of 5? USA, USSR, Britain, France. I must admit, I've just taken a peek at your chat. I'm sorry that that some of you are feeling that these are, to quote William, brutal. My apologies for that. Question number 7. Let's see how you get on with this one. Bit of pop culture knowledge, I think, here. Question number 7 is Sidney, Athens, Beijing, London. What comes next in that sequence? What's the 5th? Sidney, Athens, Beijing, and London. Number 8 in What Comes Next. One for the Soviet historians amongst you. Lenin, Stalin, Malenkov, Khrushchev. Lenin, Stalin, Malenkov, and Khrushchev. What comes next in that sequence? For question number 9, here we go. Question number 9, it's Harry Truman, Doris Day, Red China, Johnny Ray. Question number 9 is Harry Truman, Doris Day, Red China, Johnny Ray. What comes next? I should add that for number 9, this was actually an Only Connect question. It's probably the only one that I've ever got on Only Connect. But Harry Truman, Doris Day, Red China, Johnny Ray, what comes next in that sequence was number 9. And the 10th and final question, this takes us to halfway through the quiz. Bristol, Harrogate, Manchester, Stratford-upon-Avon. That is a very specific sequence. Bristol, Harrogate, Manchester, Stratford-upon-Avon. What comes next in that sequence? For this, it will definitely help you if you are a history teacher. So that was your question 10, Bristol, Harrogate, Manchester, Stratford-upon-Avon. Hopefully I've put the right ones in here, unlike in round 2. Those are the 10 sequences. Remember that you need to identify the 5th one in each of those sequences. Those are the 4. What comes next? As in the previous rounds, I'll leave those on the screen for a few minutes, let you confer with your teams, and then I'll come back. Okay, so those were your 10 questions in the What Comes Next round. Hopefully that's given you sufficient time to take a look through them and to discuss any that you were unsure of with your team. And we're now halfway through the 6 rounds that I promised you, and I think that now seems like a good time for you to probably head off to the bar or the bathroom while you get the chance to take a look at the picture round. Here is a set of 10 historical characters portrayed in either Lego or Playmobil. Now, all of these have been kind of semi-officially accepted by their respective brands as the character representation of these historical personalities. But your job is to work out who on earth they're meant to be. There are a choice of 16 possible historical figures across the top of the screen, which means that 6 of those must be incorrect. You just need to match the correct ones to the ones that are there. So take a few minutes to look through these, have a chat with your teammates, and I'm just going to pop out and change the barrel ahead of round 6. Sally Thorne, this is your fault. This was going to be my costume for the HASHP Euro Clio quiz next week, but she said that if I'm not going to put on my Indiana Jones costume and go in front of a picture of Petra, then what is the point of this quiz? There you go. Hopefully that's the point. I've even brought the whip. So there you go. Sally, this is your fault. It's really hot up here. So I hope that you're happy with yourself as we finish off the picture round there. Hopefully the timing didn't catch you out there. That's what I'm hoping. Yeah, there is a fair point being made by a couple of people about the issues of lag on doing an internet quiz, and I accept that is a problem. I honestly don't really know of a practical way to solve that if you are running a remote team. I know that some people have kind of got YouTube running on one person's machine and then they're screen sharing that out to the rest of the team, so at least the team was seeing it at the same time. But who knows? Similarly, if you are on Zoom, then you might find that your 40 minutes is ending around now. So if you want to stop and restart your Zoom stream, then now is probably the time to do it, because I'm not saying anything particularly important, like most of the time. Actually, while we do this, I will just explain what we're going to be moving on to next. It's round 5. It's going to be true or false, pretty straightforward. All of these have been lifted from my podcast and from my book, 366 Days, which I really hope that some of you managed to get for free when Amazon were giving the Kindle edition away a while ago. That was a push from me to let them give it away for free rather than charging for it, and so it was good to see that lots of people did take advantage of that. If you didn't, then get in touch with me and we'll see if we can work something out to see if we can get you a Kindle edition instead. Now, round 5 then, true or false. It is exactly as it says on the tin. Have a look at the statement, decide whether you think it's true or false. This is a traditional round from the TMHistoryIcons pub quiz that we do live every year. It usually goes down quite well, so I hope that this works this time as well. So question number 1, true or false? Income tax was introduced to Britain in 1799 as a temporary measure to pay for the French Revolutionary Wars. Was that true or false? Income tax was introduced to Britain in 1799, initially only as a temporary measure to pay for the French Revolutionary Wars. Is that true or is it false? Okay, on to question 2, and short-sightedness on my count there. I didn't change the pub background to be the beautiful city of Petra in Jordan, but that's my fault and not yours, so don't worry about it. Let's move on to question number 2. True or false? Opened in January 1990, the largest McDonald's restaurant in the world was in Moscow's Pushkin Square for 22 years. Is that true or false? Opened in January 1990, the largest McDonald's restaurant in the world was in Moscow's Pushkin Square for 22 years. There you go. That looks a bit nicer, doesn't it? Okay, on to question number 3 in true or false. Question number 3. Although work is being conducted on the tower itself, the Big Ben bell was cast so well when it was made that it has never needed to be repaired. So tower work is being done on Queen Elizabeth Tower at the moment. We know that it's covered in scaffolding. But the question is, the Big Ben bell itself was cast so well that it has never needed to be repaired. Is that true or is it false? Okay, true or false? Question number 4. I've got a very squeaky leather jacket on and I'm pooling. Sally, this is your fault. Question number 4. The first time that people were ever asked to spend a penny in order to go to the toilet was to use George Jennings' monkey closet. That's apparently its name at the Great Exhibition of 1851. The first time people were ever asked to spend a penny in order to go to the toilet, that popular British phrase for going to the toilet, the first time ever was to use George Jennings' monkey closet at the Great Exhibition of 1851. Is it true or is it false? Oh, Sarupa, thank you for playing TMHI quiz. It's a bit hard on Twitter. I'm sorry. It's so hard to try and pitch this when you've not got people to bounce off because of, social distancing, unfortunately. But thank you very much for coming along to play. We're in our true or false round. This is round number 5 of 6. So question number 5. Dutch legal scholar Hugo Grotius, who later became the Swedish ambassador to France, was jailed for reading illicit literature on Easter Sunday. Is that true or false? Dutch legal scholar Hugo Grotius, who later became the Swedish ambassador to France, was jailed for reading illicit literature on Easter Sunday. You're unlikely to know your Dutch history, your Swedish history, or your 17th century French history. So we'll move on. It's just whether it's feasible or not. Question number 6. During the 100 Years' War, French and British forces took part in a battle involving barrels of herrings shortly before the start of Lent in 1429. I know it's a long statement, but that is up to you. During the 100 Years' War, French and British forces took part in a battle involving barrels of herrings shortly before the start of Lent in 1429. Is that true or is it false? Question number 7. Napoleon's escape from exile on Elba was only possible due to the invention of the inflatable dinghy 2 years earlier. Napoleon's escape from exile on Elba was only possible due to the invention of the inflatable dinghy 2 years earlier. Is that true or is it false? Okie dokie, let's move on to question number 8. Sidney Poitier was the first African American to win an Oscar. Number 8, true or false? Sidney Poitier was the first African American to win an Oscar. Is that true or is it false? Squeaky leather jacket. Moving on then to question number 9. The first confirmed case of Spanish flu was identified at Camp Funston in Fort Riley, Kansas in March 1918. Lots and lots of names and dates and places and things there. The first confirmed case of Spanish flu was identified at Camp Funston in Fort Riley, Kansas in March 1918. Is that true or is that false? And finally, in the true or false round, question number 10. Despite its prevalence in popular culture, the FBI has never actually published a 10 most wanted fugitives list. Question number 10, true or false? Despite its prevalence in popular culture, the FBI has never published a 10 most wanted fugitives list. Is that true or is it false? And so that completes the true or false round. That is the penultimate round. Those are the 10 statements there on the screen. Again, I'll give you a couple of minutes to take a look at them. Remember, it's only hard if you don't know the answers. And if you did pick up the free copy of my book, then all of the answers are in there. But if not, then never mind. And you'll just have to try your best as to what seems feasible and what doesn't. I'll give you a couple of minutes and then I'll come back for round 6, which is going to be song lyrics. Okay then, I think it's time for us to come to the sixth and final round in this first ever remote pub quiz on behalf of TM History Icons. It's the ever frustrating song lyrics round. Yay! I love this round. You're going to see an extract of a lyric from a history related song. It's not necessarily the first line, and you have to work out very simply what the song is called. Now, once again, to help the auto marking on the Google form, I've given you a range of choices, but again, there are some red herrings. As mentioned earlier, as Miss Cox pointed out, in fact, you may need to scroll across in order to see all the possible song choices. They are, for those of you who don't have the answer form in front of you, in alphabetical order. These are the potential songs. There's American Pie, Enola Gay, If You Tolerate This, Then Your Children Will Be Next, In Red Square, Ned Ludd, Pompeii, Rasputin, Spanish Bombs, love that song, Strange Fruit, Sunday Bloody Sunday, The Longest Day, The World Turned Upside Down, Waterloo, We Didn't Start the Fire, and Wind of Change. It is quite possible you don't know some of those songs. It is quite possible that you don't know some of the lyrics, but we will find out very soon, won't we? So you simply need to click the radio button for whichever song you think matches with the lyric. And here is number one. There lived a certain man in Russia long ago. He was big and strong, in his eyes a flaming glow. Okay, let's face it, that's super easy. Number two, which song is this lyric from? My, oh my. I tried to hold you back, but you were stronger. Oh yeah, now it seems my only chance is giving up the fight. My, I tried to hold you back, but you were stronger. Oh yeah, and now it seems my only chance is giving up the fight. Okay, so that was song lyric number two. Let's move on to number three. Hypodermics on the shores, China's under martial law. Rock and roller cola wars, I can't take it anymore. Number three, hypodermics on the shores, China's under martial law. Rock and roller cola wars, I can't take it anymore. That's how you would say it if it wasn't a lyric, I think. Okay, so on to question number four. It's 8:15. That's the time that it's always been. We got your message on the radio. Conditions normal. You're coming home. It's 8:15. That's the time that it's always been. We got your message on the radio. Conditions normal. You're coming home. That's song lyric number four. Slightly trickier, so I gave you an extra couple of seconds there. On to question number 5. In 1649 to St George's Hill, a ragged band they called the Diggers came to show the people's will. In 1649 to St George's Hill, a ragged band they called the Diggers came to show the people's will. Okay, let's move on to question number 6. A long, long time ago, I can still remember how that music used to make me smile. Sorry, I ignored a full stop there. That's very bad of me. A long, long time ago, I can still remember how that music used to make me smile. Like that. Moving on then to question number 7 in our song lyrics round. I follow the Moskva down to Gorky Park. I follow the Moskva down to Gorky Park. If you're into your 80s rock, you will know that one immediately. For number 8, here we go. I can't believe the news today. Oh, I can't close my eyes and make it go away. How long? I can't believe the news today. Oh, I can't close my eyes and make it go away. How long? So we've just got 2 more questions to go in the whole quiz, and my mum has lost the answer sheet. Oh, Mum, she's just messaged it on Twitter. Jane Conway, can we send a little bit of love to my mum? My mum and my stepdad self-isolating and being really, really careful. Love you both very, very much. But they're not careful enough about answer sheets, says my wife Alice. This is a fair point. Okay, enough of that and family messages. You want a question, so let's get on with it. Number 9. I was left to my own devices. Many days fell away with nothing to show. I was left to my own devices. Many days fell away with nothing to show. That's hard. So that was question number 9. I was left to my own devices. Many days fell away with nothing to show. Miss Giddings, I'm warming up for a request for a history pod of just me talking through song lyrics. Okay, fine. I mean, let's face it, we're on what? Week 5 of lockdown for us now? I think 5, 6, I think it might be. Kind of losing my mind. I've dressed up as Indiana Jones. I'm pretty much willing to do anything at the moment. Let's move on to the final question in the quiz. This is it. Number 10. I should have reordered this. This is really negative. Anyway, the future teaches you to be alone. The present to be afraid and cold. So if I can shoot rabbits, then I can shoot fascists. The future teaches you to be alone, the present to be afraid and cold. So if I can shoot rabbits, then I can shoot fascists. That's question number 10. That's the final song lyric. It's the final question for the entire quiz. Good luck. Okay, so that was number 10, and get back to the right button, Mr. Allsop. There we go. Those are the 10 song lyrics. Again, I will leave those on the screen for a couple of minutes for you, just in case you're unsure of any. That is the final round, of course. If you are confident with the questions, then you can submit, but I'll give you a few minutes after this. Just focus on this round for the time being would be my advice. Well, everybody, that concludes the questions for the quiz. Now, by now, your team captain should hopefully have filled in all the sections on the Google form and be pretty much ready to submit the finished thing. I am going to give you just a couple more minutes before we go through the answers so that you can do a final check of your responses, make any changes as necessary, and then click submit. Remember that Google won't do anything with your form unless you click submit. Now, I do realize that internet lag means that we are definitely not all fully synchronized. So I'll give you a countdown to the submission deadline, and then I'll give you a little bit of a buffer before I start to go through the answers so that we know that nobody's cheating. And then I'll also tell you about next week's virtual history pub quiz with Sally and Rich. So take 5 minutes just now to charge your glasses, check your responses before clicking submit on the Google form, after which we're going to go through the answers. Yay! Well, welcome back. Hopefully you've filled in all of those sections. Yes, I've changed into my Father Biocca outfit. He's, let's face it, probably one of the wisest historical characters, false, fictional historical characters that any of us know. So I decided to change into this because he is the man who has all the answers. Please make sure that you have submitted your form. And while we just wait for the internet lag to catch up before we start taking a look at those responses. If you enjoy virtual history pub quizzes, then there is another one next Sunday on the 26th of April. It's hosted by Sally Thorne and Rich Kennett, and it's being run in association with the Historical Association, the School's History Project, and Euroclio. They're billing it as a quiz for the discerning self-isolators and social distancers. Yet, despite that, they're still keen for funny team names and fancy dress. I don't know how I'm going to cope. Now, they're already guaranteeing 3 rounds to be in there, and I know that they're working on some more. Historical film, historical pictures, and a round on plague, because, well, they kind of felt that they had to. Now, you can either play on your own or you can play in teams of up to 4 people, and they'll be streaming the quiz itself live on Zoom. You can register to take part by visiting bit.ly/historyquiz2604. Hopefully Sally will sort of tweet that address out, or maybe pop it into the YouTube feed. It's bit.ly/historyquiz2604 because it's on the 26th of the 4th month. And depending on how tonight's results pan out, I think it could be a great opportunity to maybe settle old scores while bringing the gang back together. That's what it's about anyway. Okay, it's time for us to go through some answers. I'm assuming that the internet lag will have caught up with us, and I hope that I won't take too much more of your time, because we've already overrun from my estimation, pretty much like most of my lessons. But here we go. Round 1 was earlier or later, and you may recall that we began with the Catholic monarchs of Spain, Ferdinand and Isabella. I'm struggling to get to the right button because of where I've put the microphone. But the Catholic monarchs of Spain, Ferdinand and Isabella, they agreed to finance Columbus's voyage across the Atlantic on the 17th of April 1492. Well, obviously Arthur Guinness signed a 9,000-year lease for his brewery much later than that. It was 1759, so the first one was later. Question 2, Thomas Stevens became the first person to cycle around the world. That was over a century after Guinness started to brew, so question 2 was also later. Question 3, an enemy ship was sunk by a submarine for the first time. This happened in the American Civil War, and so that was earlier. That was in 1864. Question 4, the first Pony Express delivery was sent in 1860. So only slightly, but still earlier nonetheless. Question number 5, Richard Wagner's Ring Cycle performed in its entirety for the first time. That, of course, was later. On to question 6. The first execution using an electric chair was in 1890. That also, of course, was much later. It would have been, well, scientifically impossible for it to have happened much before then. Question number 7. The world's first human-to-human heart transplant. Now, this might throw you for some of the other questions. This was much later. They tried doing this before, but never human to human. This didn't happen until 1967 in South Africa, so that one, of course, was later. Question number 8, the first woman to be awarded a pilot's license was in 1910. So that was earlier than the world's first human-to-human heart transplant. Question 9, the first woman to receive a Ph.D., that was in 1678. It was a Ph.D. in philosophy and theology in Italy. So considerably earlier, which leaves question number 10, the first black international football player, who incidentally played for Scotland. That was in 1881. So obviously much, much later. So those are the answers. Later, later, earlier, earlier, later, 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 earlier, earlier, later. If you've not got your answer sheet in front of you, then it makes no sense anyway. So let's move on to round 2. That was historical-ish movie taglines. Houston, we have a problem. That, of course, I went to see this for my 13th birthday at the Stockport Multiplex. This was Apollo 13. Question number 2. One dream can change the world. One dream can change the world. That comes from the brilliant Selma. Number 3. Nothing on earth could come between them. I'm going to lose friends, because I do. Every time that I admit this, I have never seen Titanic. That is the tagline from Titanic. Nothing on earth could come between them. I've never seen it because I know what happens at the end. It sinks, doesn't it? So can't see the point. Question number 4. The story that won't go away is JFK. One of my wife's favourite films. I do need to thank her because she was the one who put this round together, actually. I will do a little virtual round of applause for my wife. If you're in the YouTube chat, then she is Alice in there. Or she's Mrs. Allsop Hums. She's done an enormous amount of work behind the scenes to make this happen, and tolerates me. So you know, she's given a lot. Number 5. The mission is a man. The mission is a man. That is the tagline to Saving Private Ryan. Okay. On to question number 6. The time is now. Number 6, the time is now. That's suffragette. Okay. Number 6, the time is now is suffragette. Number 7, the story of a man with a free soul and with the courage to follow it could be none other than Braveheart. That was number 7. Number 8, time is the enemy. Time is the enemy. 1917. Still not watched that, actually. I need to. It's not like Titanic. Number 9, first to finish, last to die. I did say that the version of Ben-Hur was the most recent one, but the storyline's still the same from the 1959 classic. First to finish, last to die is the tagline from Ben-Hur. And number 10, his triumph changed the world forever, is the wonderful Gandhi. Number 10, Gandhi. And at that point, the battery on my camera has given out. Give me a moment, and then we will take a look at round 3. I know what you're thinking. If it had focused on changing the batteries in his camera rather than changing costumes, then we would have got through this a lot quicker. Yeah, sorry about that. All right, let's try and move on here onto our next set of answers. And I appear to be struggling with this a little bit, frustratingly. Where are we? Answers window. That's what it's meant to be. And it's not moving on. Oh, there we go. Right. Hurrah. It's all going wrong. Never mind. Right. What comes next? Nervous breakdown, quite possibly. Right. What comes next? Versailles, Saint-Germain, Neuilly, Trianon. The 5th one in that sequence is Sèvres. They are the peace treaties, the major peace treaties after the First World War in sequence. Okay. Obviously, after that, it would be Lausanne, but not for a few years. Question number 2. Henry, Edward, Mary is Elizabeth. Now, I can imagine some of you are going to be complaining and saying, why isn't Lady Jane Grey in there? And it's because she wasn't crowned. She never had her coronation. Therefore, it's Henry, Edward, Mary, Elizabeth. They are coronated Tudor monarchs. Number 3. Omaha, gold, Juno and sword. Omaha, gold, Juno and sword. They are the D-Day landing beaches. So the 5th one, of course, is Utah. On to question number 4. medieval, Renaissance, Baroque and classical. Cool, these things are very warm. Medieval, Renaissance, Baroque and classical. The fifth one there is romantic. They are the accepted styles of music in chronological order. Okay, so romantic music from mid-19th century until the first decade or so of the 20th century. Number 5, John Hampden, Arthur Hazelrig, Denzil Hollis, William Strode. The fifth is John Pym. I tried to give you a clue on this one. They were the 5 that Charles I tried to arrest. Okay, so that was the attempted arrest of the 5 members. They were the 5 members, and the fifth one was John Pym. Number 6, quite proud of finding this one, I have to admit. USA, USSR, Britain, France, and China. They are nuclear powers in the order in which they successfully tested the bomb. So USA, USSR, Britain, France, and China are nuclear powers in the order in which they tested the bomb. Number 7, Sidney, Athens, Beijing, London, Rio de Janeiro. They are the last 5, or a sequence of 5 host cities for the Summer Olympic Games. Bit of a recent one there. Number 8, for the Soviet historians amongst you, Lenin, Stalin, Malenkov, Khrushchev, and Brezhnev. Okay, so leaders of the USSR, again in chronological order. Number 9, and I see actually that Stuart Dias recognised that this was a Billy Joel reference. It was indeed. Harry Truman, Doris Day, Red China, Johnny Ray, South Pacific, Walter Winchell, Joe DiMaggio. That is the very first set of lines from We Didn't Start the Fire. And number 10, you can't have a Mr. Allsop history quiz without a reference to We Didn't Start the Fire. I'm trading on that 10 years later. And number 10, this is for our Historical Association friends. Bristol, Harrogate, Manchester and Stratford-upon-Avon. They were followed by Chester. They were the host cities for the Historical Association conferences for the last 5 years. Of course, this year's in Bristol has sadly needed to be postponed due to the situation. I know that there's, SHP in Leeds this summer, absolutely devastating that they've needed to cancel outright. And my heart goes out to Matt, who is an old friend of mine. But there you go. Those were the answers. I won't get too caught up in the emotion of all of that. And we'll get on to the picture round. These were the historical characters. So, number 1, it's the angriest that I've ever seen him depicted. That is Abraham Lincoln. That's the officially recognised Lego figure for Abraham Lincoln. Comes from Lego Movie 2, I think. Number 2 is Sir Thomas Fairfax. Number 3, you can maybe tell by the unibrow, but that is Frida Kahlo in Playmobil. Number 4, there he is, it's the bard himself, Mr. William Shakespeare. Number 5, okay, that is Joan of Arc. Number 6 is Cleopatra. She's even got the snake. Number 7, that one there, is Marie Curie. If you listen to History Pod, we've got an episode about the Curies coming out in about a day or 2, actually. So tune in for that one. For number 8, he's not holding a chicken or a rooster. He's holding a hawk with its hood on. That is the Playmobil version of Henry VIII, the officially recognised version of him. Number 9 there. That is one of the most famous female pirates of all time, Anne Bonny. And number 10, bit of a sort of left field one, this, because this is from his military days. That's George Washington. That is the military George Washington in Lego. Okay, so that was your picture round 4. Round 5 was true or false. Now I know that true or false is a bit of a wild guess, and we'll see how it goes. I've just been pointed out, actually, I've seen it in the YouTube chat, that I spelt Brezhnev wrong on the answers on the screen. I always get the Z and the H muddled up. And so because I feel a connection to people that happens to, I can assure you that on the Google form, I've got both versions of the Z and the H both ways round, because I always make that spelling mistake. So if you typed it the other way around, then it's right. And similarly, if you typed it that way around, then it will be marked as right. On to true or false then. Income tax was introduced in Britain in 1799 to pay for the French Revolutionary Wars. That is entirely true. We've got Pitt the Younger to thank for that. On to number 2. Opened in January 1990, the largest McDonald's restaurant in the world was in Moscow's Pushkin Square for 22 years. That again is true. Even though it opened during the Soviet era, that is absolutely true. Number 3. The Big Ben bell was cast so well that it's never needed to be repaired. That is false. The Big Ben bell actually cracked 3 months after it was set up, and they carried out a repair, and they kind of stuffed the crack with some bits and bobs as a temporary repair, and they never went back to it. So after its first repair, it's actually never been repaired, but it has been repaired once 3 months after it was installed. So the sound that you hear from Big Ben is not what it's meant to sound like. Okay, on to number 4. The first time that people were ever asked to spend a penny in order to go to the toilet was to use George Jennings' monkey closet at the Great Exhibition of 1851. Absolutely true. For your penny at the Great Exhibition, you not only got to go to flushing nice clean toilets, but they would also shine your shoes for you, should you ask them to. Number 5, Dutch legal scholar Hugo Grotius, Swedish ambassador to France, jailed for reading illicit literature. That is false, but so much of that is true. He was a legal scholar, he was Dutch, he did later become the Swedish ambassador to France, but he was jailed due to Calvinistic disputes in the Netherlands at the time. But what's interesting about him is that he escaped jail because once a month he was brought reading books into his cell, and one day he put himself into the chest that the books were brought in, and he was carried out of the castle by hiding inside a book chest. So Hugo Grotius, what a dude. Question number 6. During the 100 Years' War, French and British forces were involved in a battle involving barrels of herrings shortly before the start of Lent, 1429. Absolutely true. It's called the Battle of the Herrings. The battle wasn't necessarily about the barrels of herrings, but they were definitely involved. I was very careful with my wording there. Number 7. Napoleon's escape from exile in Elba only possible due to the invention of the inflatable dinghy. Don't be ridiculous. That's absolutely false. He escaped on a brig. Number 8. Sidney Poitier was the first African American to win an Oscar. Not true. Not true. He's well known as being the first African American to win Best Actor, but he was not the first African American to actually win an Oscar. That actually went to Harriet Tubman, who won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for her role in Gone with the Wind. Number 9, the first confirmed case of Spanish flu. This is true. Spanish flu, as I'm sure you are aware, the first confirmed case at least was actually identified in an American military base in the States. Number 10. The FBI, yes, it absolutely has. This is false. The FBI publishes a 10 most wanted fugitives list regularly. It doesn't have a time frame to do so, but it's been doing it since 1955 or thereabouts from what I remember. So those were your 10 answers. You don't need to see all of those. Let's move on to our 6th and final round. These are our song lyrics. So, there lived a certain man in Russia long ago. He was big and strong, in his eyes a flaming glow. That's Rasputin. Who could not know that was Rasputin? Sorry, I'm just needing to load another website so that we can start to to see what's going on with the answers. My wife's beavering away in the background. Question number 2. My, I tried to hold you back, but you were stronger. That, of course, is Waterloo, one of the greatest Eurovision songs, if not the greatest Eurovision song of all time, by the inimitable ABBA. Number 3, hypodermics on the shores, China's under martial law, rock and roller cola wars, I can't take it anymore. Those are the final verse lines from We Didn't Start the Fire. Number 4, it's 8:15, that's the time that it's always been, and so on and so forth. That's Enola Gay by Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark, OMD. For number 5, this is in 1649 to St George's Hill. A ragged band they called the Diggers came to show the people's will. The year might have given you a clue even if you didn't know the lyrics. I know the version by Billy Bragg, but I think that there was a version before that. It's The World Turned Upside Down. Number 6, a long time ago. You all know that one. That's American Pie by Don McLean. Number 7, I follow the Moskva down to Gorky Park. I know that there's a few people playing in Romania, and if you didn't get this one, then shame on you. You obviously don't look at the posters. This was Wind of Change by the Scorpions, who seem to play in Bucharest like every 3 months or so. They're here all the time, and they're surprisingly good. You should go and see them if you get the chance. Number 8, I can't believe the news today. Oh, I can't close my eyes and make it go away. How long is Sunday Bloody Sunday by U2? Yeah, you've obviously got to sing it with the rhythm. Number 9, I was left to my own devices. Many days fell away with nothing to show. This is one for the kids amongst you. Maybe, I don't know. That's Pompeii by Bastille. So kind of semi-historically related. And the final one, the future teaches you to be alone, the present to be afraid and cold. The last one, line there is the clue. So if I can shoot rabbits, then I can shoot fascists. Is if you tolerate this, then your children will be next. By the wonderful Manic Street Preachers, of course. So that completes the first ever TM History Icons virtual pub quiz. What can I say? Cheers, everybody. Thank you very much for playing. I hope that you enjoyed it. And we're looking at the scores. Now, Mrs. Alsop hums. I'm looking at the spreadsheet here. Is this confirmed?
This is confirmed.
As I'm looking at it.
I think maybe 2 unsubmitting that didn't submit properly.
Right, so it seems that a couple may not have submitted successfully.
Without one capital, but I allowed it.
Okay, and just for the spelling round, I should confirm that my wife has been incredibly good, and she's gone through all of the typed rounds, and she's gone through just to double check that all of those responses were great. This is amazing, everybody. We've got. Okay, and Brezhnev has been allowed pretty much. As long as it looks like Brezhnev, then it's been allowed. We've got 45 teams submitted. This is absolutely amazing, everybody. Thank you very much for joining in, and thank you very, very much for playing. I'm just going to ask whether this is going to affect the winners.
I'm just going to do another quick check.
We're just. This is properly live. This is properly live, everyone. Okay. Right, it doesn't appear to be affecting anything from what you're editing. So I've got the scores here, and we actually have joint winners in the first ever quiz that we have done, with a frankly astounding 52 out of 60 points. 2 different teams share this jointly. So an enormous congratulations to, firstly, the Humanities Unicorns. The Humanities Unicorns, well done to you. You got 52 out of 60. And so too did the Handle Removers. Following them with 51 out of 60. So just 1 point off. We've got Team Hallie Rubenhold. Team Rubenhold, you just pipped to the post in joint second place there. They are from the History Teachers Book Club. If you're interested in reading historical books, then you should definitely join the Historical Teachers Book Club. And they share that joint second place at 51 out of 60 points with the SHP Old Geezers. Hats off to you. So we've got 4 teams in the top 2 positions, and then in the third position on a very clear 50, just one team getting 50 there, 50 out of 60, it's Tequila Mockingbird. Nice name, Tequila Mockingbird. So across the top 3 finishers, we've actually got, or the top 3 sets of points. There's literally 2 points in it, 52, 51 and 50. But a massive, massive congratulations to the Humanities Unicorns and to the Handle Removers. What can I say other than thank you for playing along. Thank you for tolerating my ridiculousness and my stir craziness. A huge thank you to my wonderful wife, Alice, who has done all the work, most of the work. I've literally just been sitting here talking. She's been doing everything else, but well done to her. Well done to you. I hope that you've enjoyed it. And please do not forget that next Sunday, the 26th of April, starting at 7:30, I believe, UK time, there is going to be another quiz. That is hosted by the wonderful Sally Thorne and Rich Kennett. It's in association with the Historical Association, Schools History Project and Euroclio. You can register for that at bit.ly/History Quiz 2604. Now, at this point, I think, Alice, are you going to release all of the... Yeah. All of the responses are going to get released back to you so that you can take a look at how it went. Again, everyone, there's not much more that I can say here, is there? But thank you very, very much for playing. And we'd love to get your feedback. This was, I wouldn't say that it was thrown together. We've done a fair bit of work to try and get this up and running. If you thought that it was terrible, please let us know why. If you thought that it was good and you'd like to try something like this again, then let us know and let us know what you'd like more of and what you wouldn't, and we'll see what we can do. Until then, big love to the TM History Icons team, to my mum and my stepdad. Hiya, thanks for watching, and to my stepsister as well, Alicia. She's been joining in. To the rest of my department, who I know are playing in their various houses, and friends and family, and all of that, and all of you lot. You are wonderful. You are lovely. I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to go to bed because it's 10 to midnight out here. Take care, everyone, and look after yourselves. Stay clean. Wash your hands. And yeah, don't go out unless you really need to. Until we meet again, keep thinking historical thoughts. Bye.